February 12, 2014 PDC Board of Commissioners meeting. Gina, please call the roll.
Chair Andrews?
Here.
Commissioner Dixon?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Moles? Absent. Commissioner Wilhoit?
Here. Okay. Commissioner Moles is down in Salem at a hearing today, so he was sorry to miss it, but I know he's doing good work down at the state level. First item are commission reports. Briefly, it's only been a couple weeks since our last meeting. I had a chance to attend the Portland Business Alliance retreat where there was quite a few really good presentations in terms of both how the economy looks and what the political landscape looks, and even Tim Dye, the University of Oregon guy who has seemed in the past to be somewhat pessimistic, was optimistic. So I thought that was great. I got a chance to tour the light rail bridge and walk on it. It is absolutely unbelievable. Although it looks like from what you can see that they're really close to actually closing the gap. It's another 2 months before they do so, and it's probably still 100 feet apart. It's a long, long way. It's an amazing project, though. Had our regular city commission meetings and had a chance this week to attend the ULI pre-function and the Randy Gregg's Bright Lights presentation with the CEO of ULI, and I'm sure Patrick will have something to talk about in his report. Charles, anything for the cause?
No, nothing. I actually attended the PBA retreat as well and would second your comments, but I don't have anything else to add.
Mr. Kelly?
I just had a briefing on the Lentz district from staff just the last 45 minutes, so that's my report for the day.
You're still drinking from a hose kind of a situation here. I know how that works. Commissioner Dixon?
I have no exciting news, but I also attended the PBA retreat, and that was very informative. So that's it for me today.
All right. Executive Director Patrick Quinton.
Thank you, Chair Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And even though we did meet for the budget work session less than a month ago, we didn't do the normal report. So we've actually been quite busy. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't start off with some kind of acknowledgement of what's transpired with regard to the Majestic Trader Joe's development. Since we last met, the board obviously took action on that in November, felt very positive about the development, and I think everybody's followed the news and knows the outcome right now. It is I'm sure the board would agree it's a disappointing outcome, but as I've relayed to staff and tried to state publicly, it's part of our business. We have failed projects, even projects with the best intentions, projects where we pour a lot of work into them, and we keep moving forward, and we try and resurrect projects, try and do new projects, and keep moving forward. So we will take that same constructive attitude. The other thing I've already said on this, but I'll say it again here, is that we do truly look forward to hearing what comes out of community conversations around both this site and about the larger concerns about gentrification, displacement, and are certainly open to learning new ways that we can play a constructive role in all the neighborhoods that we work. So we certainly believe that's going to be a part of how we move forward on this site and other work in North and Northeast Portland. We have had a number of inquiries. I know probably folks on the board have had inquiries from others about ideas that can happen on the site, and we know that there remains interest in the site, and we know that there are a lot of good ideas. Once again, we're gonna let some of these conversations play out, and to the extent that we feel like there's a way to move forward, it'll be a very kind of formal public process, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to propose on it. So anybody who has ideas are welcome to submit them, or we'd love to hear them, but we're not actually in a position to take action on it, but maybe it will be a matter of months this time and not and not years. So anyway, lots of lost opportunity there with both businesses that would have benefited from that, both on the small business side, the local businesses, as well as local construction firms. But like I said, I'm optimistic we'll find a way to provide new opportunities for those businesses. So as I said, lots happened over the past month. I'll run through a number of interesting highlights. I had the opportunity to join the board of something called the Oregon Storyboard, which is a joint effort by the Oregon Film Office and the Portland Incubator Experiment PI to create a digital media incubator. So it's meant to incubate ideas and businesses around digital media, and we're seeing this convergence in Portland around both the growth in software and technology companies and our film industry. And so the Oregon Film Office has been promoting this as a way to generate more economic activity around that. And so the organization that's been created is called Oregon Storyboard. And we held our first board meeting on the 17th of January at the Eastside Exchange, our former building on the Burnside Bridgehead. So more exciting things to come on that. We're actually talking with them about having them locate formally in a building that we lease from OMSI on the OMSI campus. So they'll be integrated into some of OMSI's activities. On the 20th, on the day when we celebrated Dr. King's birthday, I think a number of us attended the Scanner Breakfast event, had the opportunity to speak at that event. PDC's been a longtime sponsor of that event, and so it was a great opportunity to talk about our work and talk once again a little bit about the Trader Joe's project. It seems to be the common topic. Later on that week, we actually had a great event, a news story around our We Build Green Cities initiative. We signed our first MOU with a consortium in Japan referred to as the Smart City Project. So we signed, so there were representatives from that consortium here in Portland. We did a signing ceremony at ZGF, but it will allow the We Build Green Cities firms, which include companies like ZGF and GLUMAC, the opportunity to work with the consortium of Japanese firms around smart city projects, and these are typically large kind of city building projects in Asia. Once again, we're just slowly growing the notoriety of our firms and the We Build Green Cities initiative in general through these type of partnerships. A few days later, our chair knows this news well from his day job, but one of our higher profile software firms, Jama Software, announced that they were moving into a new downtown headquarters at 2nd and Taylor. It's a great bit of news for our software industry. We continue to have companies as they expand re-up in downtown locations. So it's getting to the point where we really don't need to promote downtown locations or city locations. If the firms find them themselves and really want to be here, they view it as part of their competitive advantage. On the 30th, the Commissioner Amanda Fritz announced the plans to build 2 new parks in East Portland. One of the parks is a park that we've supported for a long time. Gateway Plaza, we helped purchase the land many years ago. When parks funding declined, we weren't able to hold money in our budget because there was really no project for us to work on. And then once parks SDCs rebounded with the new development wave, they've had money to now invest in parks, and so they asked if we would be willing to put money back in the budget on that, and so that's going to be part of the budget request that comes through this year from Gateway. I had a chance to visit. I think Commissioner Dixon's been to the Rosewood Initiative. I'm not sure who else is on the board has been to the Rosewood Initiative, but I visited there a few weeks back, and it's really an inspiring initiative. Rosewood sits on the border between Portland and Gresham at Northeast Stark and 162nd. a whole confluence of different challenges that they're working through, but the energy in that group is fantastic, and they have this great community space, and it's now becoming the place where all the local services are now offered, and it's becoming a great gathering space as well. So I have had a chance to talk with them about their progress and what we could do to continue to help the Rosewood Initiative. It is one of our neighborhood prosperity initiative districts, so we've been working with them for a while. If you haven't had a chance to look at the video that they put together, a time-lapse video for their mural project, they have this beautiful mural that faces their storefront operation. You should go take a look at it, rosewoodinitiative.org. It's easy to find the video. It's just a great story. We showed it to staff a few weeks back to kind of inspire everybody in their work. I'm not sure if you noticed, but in the Business Journal last week, there was a story about Vestas and the rebound of the wind sector, and it was a funny event here at PDC because we actually had somebody from the press call us and admit that maybe they were wrong about something they wrote about our work a few years prior when we made our investment in Vestas. The timing was unfortunate because the production of new wind farms was beginning to decline, and so there were all sorts of doubts about why, as a city, we would have invested in Vestas' headquarters. Didn't we know that this industry was declining? And at the time, we said this is a long-term bet. The wind industry is not you don't look at this on a year-by-year basis. We have a lot of confidence in the growth in renewable energy sources, and sure enough, we're now back at a point where we have more megawatts under construction in the wind industry than at any time in the history of that industry. So, we knew that this kind of cyclical process would unfold, but it was nice to actually have that validated and actually have somebody come back and say, that we were right. We rarely get that kind of validation. And then another piece of really good news on the industry side is that a company known as Viewpoint Construction Software, but it's been formerly also known as Coaxis. They're based in a building that we helped renovate many years ago, right under the Hawthorne Bridge on the Central East Side. They just bought another company. I think we have potential there for this to be one of the preeminent software companies in our city, and we don't get many announcements about companies here going public, but if there was, and I don't have any insider information, so I'm not violating any SEC laws here, but if an outsider looking in would put them on the short list of companies that really would have the potential, given their size and growth rate, to go public at some point. So it's great to have a company that's headquartered here in Portland have that kind of global reach. And then the big news this week was the announcement about the results of our RFI for our properties in Lentz. Lentz is getting the goats. So the Belmont goats that are located on a property in the Central East Side that has now a proposed development. We're looking for a new home, and they proposed as part of the goats themselves didn't propose, but the goats of people were proposed. And so we thought it was a great idea as an interim use. So the goats will be coming to our site at 93rd and Woodstock, and so that'll be fun. And then when the farmers market is operation, we're looking at whether we can have them temporarily on our 91st and Foster location, so that there's a little bit more of a tie-in with the farmers market operation. So that's newsworthy. It's far more newsworthy than almost anything else we've done. It's you put the goats in Lentz and everybody writes about it. But we also awarded use of our sites to two other proposals, both of them interim uses, and both of them are actually going to be in the same site. Propel Studio Architecture and Rose CDC are both proposed different types of art installations. One is a photography exhibit, and the other one that kind of talks about Lentz. And the other one is an exhibit on wire mesh furniture. So we decided to put these two together, create more activity in this space, and so they'll be co-located at our site at 88th and Foster. And then one other proposal, and that was an actual development proposal that we're still in negotiation with, and so I would expect that we would be able to move forward on that probably a year from now. As Chair Andrews mentioned, we are currently in the middle of participating in something called the Rose Fellowship, which is sponsored by the Urban Land Institute, and 4 cities are selected. I think I've mentioned this to the board, and Portland was one of 4 cities, and so we travel around to the other cities, but this whole group of folks comes to Portland, and they take a look at a specific land use challenge that we've proposed. And so this is our week when all these folks are in town, and they're looking at the Central East Side, what we call the Southern Triangle, but it's the area of the Central East Side where light rail will cut through, and 2 new transit stations will be developed there. Lots of underdeveloped properties and an opportunity for a whole new wave of development. So we've asked this team of experts to help us think through what we do there, and so they're meeting as we speak. They've kicked us out of the room, so we get to show up tomorrow and they tell us what they think we should do without us having any preview of that, so that'll be fun. The 4 cities that are participating are Portland, Memphis, Indianapolis, and Honolulu, and so we all go to other cities, and so I got Indianapolis, so I head to Indianapolis in 2 weeks to do the same for them. Our director of transportation, Leah Treat, is going to Honolulu, so she got the better end of the deal. Although the Indy folks are being very nice, they understand that they have to make up for the fact that we're not going to Hawaii. A couple other things upcoming. One, the RFP for the Grove Hotel. So the Grove Hotel has gone through a number of different MOUs and agreements, different development scenarios. So we now have a new RFP out, and we're soliciting actual proposals for the redevelopment of that site. That RFP is out, and proposals are due on March 10th. So you can go to our website and look under the headlines category and find that RFP. We actually have had a number of interested parties contact us in recent months around the site, around the building. So we're looking forward to an active response. And then the Metropolitan Contractor Improvement Program is hosting a trade show at the Oregon Convention Center on the 21st of this month for disadvantaged minority women and emerging small businesses, for subcontractors. And obviously we do a lot of work with MSIP on their activities, and so we encourage anybody who wants to go to that trade show. And I think one of the topics that got highlighted as part of the whole Trader Joe's conversation is how much more work we still need to do to open up opportunities for minority-owned contractors. So this is one of many activities that we're engaged in. And then the last upcoming event is on the 27th. It's an event that we're hosting. It's titled "Include, Invest, and Innovate Portland," and it's a kickoff of our activities around promoting diversity in the tech sector and entrepreneurship. I think you know that we're about to announce later on this year the Startup PDX Challenge for this year, which will focus on minority and women-owned businesses. So this is just to find lots of opportunities to broaden the conversation within Portland around this topic. So Puppet Labs, one of our most prominent software companies, has agreed to host that event, and so that'll be on the 27th. And then lastly, as we like to do, we have a few people sitting in the front row here that I'd like to recognize. We've had some new people join us since our last meeting, and a promotion. So the first one, starting from right to left, is Kay Little. Kay is a new business finance officer who's been with us since the beginning of January, I think. When was your first day? December. So Kay's been here a while. We're behind on these announcements. So Kay's on our lending team. He has substantial experience as a banker with a focus on business and commercial real estate. But he's also spent time working in Alaska for one of the Alaska Native corporations on real estate asset management. And then he was also a business owner prior to his banking career. So welcome, Kay, and he definitely brings valuable experience to our lending work. The person sitting next to Kay is Bob Beckcone. He is our new Assistant General Counsel. So Eric can now not work 12-hour days and on snow days. Bob came to us from the Trust for Public Lands, where he was there for over 13 years. And not only was he a lawyer, but he was also project manager. So that's encouraging for all the project folks on our staff who always fear working with our attorneys. But Bob has also worked in the public sector before. He worked for the city of Tacoma as well. So welcome to Bob. Bob and I came down on the elevator together just now, and I was asking if he could tell me any embarrassing stories that I could share, and he didn't want to do that, but I can tell you that Bob is the only one in PDC who has taxidermy in his office. So that, at PDC, that's unusual. And then the last person you all know is Bruce Wood. Bruce Wood came to us, when did you start for PDC? A year ago. So Bruce has started with us a year ago, basically as a project manager. We all know Bruce has got extensive development experience, and his addition to the team back then was really about broadening the experience on the actual development side, as opposed to being just on our side of it. Bruce has done so well that we've just promoted him to be our real estate and construction services manager. That was a position that was left open after the RIF. We were going to go out to do a search for that, but Bruce was doing such a great job, and the feedback from staff was so positive on his work that we decided to not kind of waste a lot of time with a search. So Bruce has taken over that team, and we're now going to go out instead and find basically Bruce's replacement, someone to do what Bruce was doing before he got promoted to be a manager. So took a lot of time there, but it has been a busy month, so I appreciate your patience. Thanks.
Good report, a lot to talk about. Welcome, Kay and Bob. Great to have you on board. Congratulations, Bruce. I hope you only have to do 2 jobs for a short period of time here. We tend to stretch that out, though, because of the budget problems. Next item is our meeting minutes. We have both January 9th and the January 23rd budget work session on the agenda, but there are only 2 commissioners present that were present at the January 9th meeting, so I think we'll have to put that one off. So I would look for a motion to approve the January 23rd budget work session minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any changes, additions? It was a long one. Good job, Gina. All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That was easy. Next item is public comments for items not on the agenda. I don't see anyone signed up, so we can move right to the regular agenda. This is Resolution 7039. It's an action item authorizing the disposition of 0.59 acres of real property in the River District Urban Renewal Area to Pearl Hotel Investors, LLC for $142,000. Bruce Woods, Steve Blank, or is it just Bruce? And I'm going to actually, Patrick has spent a lot of time working on this over the last few months, so I'm going to let you get this started.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I wanted to do the introduction on this just because I have been working directly with the mayor's office as well as Pearl Hotel Investors on this, and so I wanted to provide some of the background on this, and then Bruce will provide more of the specific transaction related information. But I think once again we've had a few very newsworthy items over the past few months, and the controversy surrounding the Right to Dream Camp relocation has been one of them. And if you recall, that late summer, we were asked by both Commissioner Fritz's office and the mayor's office to think of potential sites that we owned where the camp, which is currently located at 4th and Burnside, could be relocated. And so without we weighing in on the merits of that, we provided a list of properties that we thought made sense, and of those properties, there were a variety of issues were identified. Of those properties, the one that seemed to be the most logical one at the end of the day was what we referred to as Lot 7. So Lot 7 is a parking lot that sits underneath the Lovejoy ramp to the Broadway Bridge. Bruce will go through the history on the property, but but it's a lightly used parking lot. We have an agreement with Reach CDC on the parking lot, so they have access to a number of the spaces on that lot, but even through that, it was not really extensively used. So, so that was offered up. The City Council took up consideration of that, and I think, as everybody knows, there was a lot of feedback on that, particularly from folks in the Pearl neighborhood on that, and the mayor made a decision to take a step back and to accept the offer of folks from the Pearl neighborhood and the Pearl business community to help work on a solution. And so for much of the past few months, a handful of folks have been working heavily on that solution with the mayor's office, and initially the efforts were focused on finding another location, and so there was a lot of work done in thinking about other sites that might make sense. That process wasn't, I think, wasn't as fruitful as people hoped, but what came out of that was a proposal to buy our Lot 7 and in doing so create a pool of money that could be used when a new location was found, and that would help defray the cost of either acquiring or leasing that new location and improving that location. And so we were asked to consider selling Lot 7, and while we typically go through a fairly methodical process in selling our property, we do have the ability, the board has the ability to directly negotiate on that, and so at the request of the mayor's office, we have done that, and we've reached an agreement to sell the property, and that's what's in front of you. There has been much discussion around what this property is worth and how we came up with this value, and so as we've communicated to you in your information, there really are two aspects to this transaction. There's the literal sale of the property that we own to Pearl Hotel investors, and the appraised value there reflects the as-is value of that property. But there's obviously additional value in that property when it becomes unencumbered, and so we agreed to allow the mayor's office to negotiate a second agreement that would unlock that value, and then the mayor's office, or the city, would be the beneficiary of that additional value, and that money could be used to help with the relocation of Right to Dream 2. Just to get into the mechanics of this, the logic of this, we obviously, much of what we own and much of what we do is funded by tax increment financing, and those dollars are not only restricted in how we can use them, but they're restricted in where we can use them. So were we to sell the property unencumbered, entirely unencumbered, and receive all of the value of that, that money would come back to us as tax increment financing, and it would need to stay in the River District, so it would not provide a pool of flexible dollars that could be used for an appropriate solution for a relocation of the camp. So the solution we came up with was to sell the property encumbered, and then, like I said, the encumbrance would be transferred from Reach to the mayor's office, and then the city would have the ability to receive those funds, and those funds would be received in an unencumbered fashion. So that's why the deal is structured as it is, and in some respects, this is PDC's contribution to this solution, and while people can agree or disagree over what our role should be in this, we obviously, this is an issue that I think requires a lot of different parties to come to the table to make something happen, and so I think it's it's an appropriate role for PDC to be putting money into this. But I more specifically, and those of us who are working in Old Town on a regular basis, I do think that we have an interest in seeing a permanent home for Right to Dream 2 camp, because I don't think where they're at right now should be a permanent home. I think there are opportunities for using that Fourth and Burnside property that would further the long-term interests of Old Town, and so I think it makes sense for us to participate for that reason as well, and contribute to the solution as well. So the total dollar amount that ends up being transferred or paid, or however you want to characterize it, for this property is a little over $1 million. Our piece of it is $142 million. The appraisal, we get to that number through an appraisal. The remaining amount was negotiated between Pearl Hotel investors and the mayor's office. We can all have our opinions about what that dollar amount should be, but what we're talking about is all speculation. So what would be the usage of the site unencumbered? What parking rates could you charge? What's the appropriate cap rate? All these things that go into typical kind of valuation of it. But because it's a property right now that is basically unused, it is all speculation. And so it's my my assessment that the number is in the ballpark. Beyond that, it's a negotiated deal, and I think it would be up to the parties involved in negotiation to talk more specifically about how the number was arrived at, but at a fairly decent utilization rate, at a cap rate that fits within the market, and at a normal parking rate, the number makes sense. So I think that's the overall logic for how you get to that dollar amount. And then I think at the end of the day, we end up with over $800,000 that can be used for a solution to I think something that everybody, including Right to Dream 2 camp, wants to see happen. So it really does put us on a path towards a solution to that. And so I think for that reason, the transaction really does make a lot of sense. So with that, I'm happy to, after Bruce does his presentation, I'm happy to answer any questions as well, since I was part of a lot of this. But I'll turn it over to Bruce and let Bruce talk about the specific transaction, and then we can discuss it.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. So as Patrick talked about the whole deal, I'm going to focus on just the parcel itself and the sale of the parcel to the Pearl Hotel investors. So good afternoon. My name is Bruce Wood. I'm the PDC Real Estate Construction Manager, Development and Construction Manager. It's going to have to get used to introducing myself that way. Also with me today is Steve Blank, the Real Estate Coordinator, who really did all the heavy lifting on putting this presentation together and did just an excellent job in helping to prepare me for the presentation. So I'm here today to present the Board Action 14-06 and PDC Resolution number 7039, authorizing the disposition of Station Place Lot 7 to Pearl Hotel Investors, LLC. The result of this action, if approved, will be the sale of the PDC-owned property at fair market value, and the property will be used as an off-street parking facility for the new Marriott Residence Inn Hotel currently under construction, located 1 block north of Lot 7 and scheduled to open in April of 2014. A little background. Lot 7 is a 64-space surface parking lot that is located directly underneath the Northwest Lovejoy Street vehicle ramp in the River District Urban Renewal area, as shown on the slide. The lot was developed in 2002 along with a PDC-owned Station Place parking garage and the Station Place Senior Housing Tower owned by Reach Community Development Corporation. The Ziba Design World headquarters was subsequently developed in 2009, just up to the north of the Reach property. Also note on this slide is the Marriott Residence Inn Hotel, as well as Lot 4, or Lot 5, which is our Station Place. It's currently undeveloped. As Patrick mentioned in his remarks, the property is encumbered by some easements and a parking agreement, which impact the property significantly. Okay, so the two easements that pertain to the overhead, one easement pertains to the overhead Northwest Lovejoy Street, vehicle ramp, and that agreement allows for and then that's one of the easements. There's also an easement for the construction, maintenance, and perpetual use of the public of the ramp structure. So the property can't be used for anything basically except parking. And then we have a parking agreement with the Station Place Senior Housing Tower for up to 40 of the reserve stalls. Now, it's also important to note that the CCTMP, the Central City Transportation Management Plan, limits the ability to rent that parking out to only monthly parking. Okay. And so those easements and restrictions impact the appraisal. As Patrick mentioned, because it can only go to monthly parking, the fact that there's another parking garage right next to it, which is, more secure and, just a better facility, this property is significantly underutilized. So the income is very low, and so therefore using the capitalization approach, the appraisals also can reflect that. So as far as the property appraisal goes, we completed it on December 1st, 2013. It was valued at $142,000 was the fair market value. So the benefits of the property sale, it generates $142,000. Those proceeds go back in the River District URA. And then there's the separate transaction that we discussed earlier that will provide funding to assist in the relocation of the Right to Dream 2 facility. And that is it. It's pretty straightforward.
I'm going to mention two more things I forgot just before we get to questions. The first is there's an existing parking agreement in place with the Pearl Hotel investors in our garage that will be terminated as a result of this transaction. They obviously won't need to use spaces in our garage if they have their own parking lot. That was a 10-year agreement, I think, and with paying for the spaces regardless of their usage. The demand for parking in this neighborhood is such that even without that parking agreement in place, we believe that we will be able to lease those spaces. So it's not going to be immediate, all of a sudden 100% absorption, but the neighborhood is significantly underparked as it is. So I think Station Place Garage is going to quickly reach capacity as new buildings come online in the neighborhood. So while there is an immediate, the agreement goes away and we can look at that as lost revenue, we do have the ability to actually lease out all those spots, and we don't expect there to be a significant drop off in our long-term revenue in the garage. And then the second thing is I really was remiss in not mentioning this, that the resolution, I'm sure Chair Andrews was going to mention this, the resolution that it's in front of you has as a condition of me executing our purchase and sale agreement the approval by City Council of the other deals. So these deals will be done concurrently, or they don't happen. So they really are tied together.
Great, thank you. Just quickly from my standpoint, I think Patrick's summary was very complete. I really understand the need for us to be part of the long-term solution for this Right to Dream location. And this is a step in that direction. And I'm also satisfied, given the way the deal is structured, that the city is going to get really full value from this at the end of the day. So I've been on this. I don't have any further questions. Charles?
No, you touched exactly on what I was going to emphasize. I appreciate the summary that you provided, Patrick, and your walking us through the transaction, Bruce. And I think if we look back in history, PDC has often been asked to play a significant role helping to solve development challenges and issues that affect all members of our community. And this is a group that is a member of our community. If we look at the Miracles Club in Northeast Portland, if we look at the Bud Clark Commons, those facilities that touch across all aspects of our society wouldn't exist without PDC's participation. So I'm happy to see us play a valuable role in making this happen, and hopefully it will come to a satisfactory resolution for everyone involved.
Thank you. Tom?
I don't think I have any questions.
Nashka?
Yeah, I would definitely second that. The location of the Right to Dream is extremely important. I agree with Patrick that its current location isn't feasible, and probably this particular location wasn't either, if you really examine it further. So I'm happy to see this transaction. I just wanted to clarify, you said that there's no other use that the lot could be used for other than parking?
Well, I guess there might, the city is required by the CCTMP, it can only be used for monthly parking.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to the easements that require it.
Yeah.
not to
You-
build
you could
anything
not
on it,
build
'cause
anything
you
underneath
gotta
it,
get
no
the,
structure.
You have
you
to
gotta
move
be
the
able to
bridge.
repair it, you gotta be able to, it's,
Because this was a point of contention at some point back in the fall, I think the right way to answer this question, because we don't need to delve back in those issues again, from a parking perspective, we can only offer monthly parking. I think that's the way to talk about it.
Okay, I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7039, authorizing disposition of .59 acres of real property in the River District Urban Renewal Area to Pearl Hotel Investors LLC for $142,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Bruce. All right. Our last action item for today, Resolution 7040, authorizing one or more agreements with Tyler Technologies, Inc. for a sum not to exceed $1,320,000 to license, implement, support, and provide up to 5 years of maintenance of Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012.
It's a mouthful.
I was just about to say that. I couldn't say that real fast twice. Fay and Dan.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. My name is Fay Brown, and I'm PDC's Chief Financial Officer, and I'm here today with Dan Spiro, who is PDC's Professional Services Manager. The action before you is to authorize the Executive Director to negotiate one or more agreements with Tyler Technologies to implement Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 as PDC's new ERP system. Dan and I will provide a brief summary of why we're recommending that we replace our current ERP system and the selection process that we went through to arrive at our recommendation. So we thought we'd start off with just a description of what an ERP system is, in case anybody's watching this. So an enterprise resource planning system is an information technology tool that integrates business and financial information into one comprehensive system to manage operations. Currently, PDC uses Lawson as its ERP system, and we use it for general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll and benefits, human resources, purchase orders and contracts, and financial statement preparation. Our current ERP system, Lawson S3 Application Suites, was selected in 1999 and implemented in 2000. Since 1999, PDC has invested approximately $6 million in Lawson. The average annual cost of maintaining the system over that time was $460,000. Lawson is typically used by larger companies. It was recently purchased by a company by the name of Infor. We met with Infor once they purchased the system, their local representatives, and asked them if they would be willing to negotiate some cost reductions for us. It wasn't really something that was in their business plan to do so. In those meetings, we asked them whether or not PDC was the smallest user of the system, and the local representative said that from their client base that the next smallest company was over 700. So it is a pretty robust solution. So why would we recommend that we're changing our ERP system? The current version of Lawson has a decommission date of May 31st, 2016. So what that means is that Lawson will continue after that date, but the current version that we're on will no longer be supported. An upgrade to the newer version of Lawson would also be a major project for us. We would have to contract with a certified installer in order to do that project. And that would be just to keep the system doing what it's doing right now. Lawson currently requires 11 databases and a third-party software to support its use. And implementing any business process improvements for the functions that we're hoping to implement in the new system would also be an additional substantial PDC project. And those changes would be automating our business process workflows, allowing us to get rid of some of the paper processing that we do and do it by electronic means. Employee self-service, which would give our employees the ability to change their W-2 information online themselves, and also mobile computing, which would allow folks to access some of the information in the system from their smartphones or from home or any remote location. And then currently, our budget and planning is done in a homegrown database that we call BUDS, and we're planning on implementing our budget development process in the new system. So our strategic objectives for IT include initiatives to streamline our IT operations to match a smaller, less complex PDC, transition PDC applications and infrastructure to the cloud, minimize application development needs and capabilities, maximize availability of remote and mobile computing tools, and then implement an alternative disaster recovery plan. So I'm going to turn this over to Dan, who led the procurement process, and he'll give you a little bit of information about how the process went.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews, Commissioners, Executive Director Quinton. Dan Spiro, Professional Services Manager. I oversee PDC's contracting and procurement activities. So overall, we took a two-step process on this process. Leading up to the initial RFQ that we issued, we did extensive market research. We surveyed our peer municipalities and kind of local governments just to see what other people are using. Wanted to find something that was the right scale and fit, as Faye had mentioned. From that research, we issued a request for qualifications to 14 different vendors. We also advertised it very broadly. From that RFQ, we shortlisted the vendors that you can see here. Each of the vendors offers different products. Some manufacture their products, some resell for others. So New World Systems, Tyler Technologies, and Unit 4 offering the products you see here. What's that? In terms of the RFP process, once we had a short list, we evaluated all of our responses on the qualifications of the vendor themselves, the people that they were going to assign to the project, the general functionality of the software, also the specific issues that are unique to PDC in terms of our setup of our project structure, our chart of accounts, the way we track time. There are certain things that are particular to us. We wanted the vendors to address those in a clear and concise way, which reflects the weighting heavily. And then also a plan to implement it and train us and support the system. We want someone to have a good access, a good coverage in case there's some system problems, so that as well, and price as well. The process we took was customary. Evaluated the written proposals. We determined the finalists. The three that we identified were all the finalists. They all had a good product. We wanted to see their demonstrations. So we did demonstrations. The demonstrations were very extensive. We repeatedly had to have them come back. Initially, they were live. Then we would do them remotely because we wanted to keep down their expenses. And then we did reference checks for all of the vendors. And then once we had all that information, this was about a 5-week process, give or take, then we came back together and kind of rescored and kind of, I'll turn it back over to Faye, and then you can see where the scoring and all that landed. And if you have any questions for me on the process, I'd be happy to address it after Faye's presentation.
Thanks, Dan. So we have here a summary of the cost comparison, and per the RFP, pricing was requested for both an on-premise, that means installed on our servers, and cloud-based or hosted versions of the software. So you can see here that Tyler Dynamics AX, which is the software that we're recommending, was not the least expensive of the three. It was in the middle. And so Tyler's on-premise proposal was $1.3 million, and their hosted was $1.6. New World Lagos was $607,000. They're hosted for on-premise, and their hosted was $1.2. And Aggresso's on-premise, that's Unit 4's on-premise, was $1.6 million, and their hosted was $2.2. As Dan had explained earlier, we took more than price into consideration. Most important to us was that we were able to get the financial information that we needed in order to continue to provide the good reports that we've been providing to you for project cost accounting, produce the CAFR that's been getting us the clean audits, and then also provide the management information that we need to run PDC and have an understanding of the expenditures that are relevant to the most important pieces of our business. With the business process improvements that we were looking for and all the things that I mentioned, Dynamics AX on-premise came out to be the highest score of all the proposals. We did have a conversation with the Dynamics AX vendor, Tyler, about moving to a hosted solution, and their recommendation is that we wait a couple of years to move to a hosted solution, but it's definitely something that they're working on. They do host for some clients. It doesn't really provide for us right now exactly what we were looking for, so we're recommending an on-premise, on our server implementation at this point.
Faye, for the public, would you distinguish between hosted versus on-premise? What's
Right,
the
we
difference?
have, PDC currently maintains servers here in the building, and our software resides on the servers here in the building. A hosted solution would be that we would access the product through probably a web portal, and the product would actually reside on their servers. Eventually, we hope to move in that direction. We're working right now, as we speak, we're working on other implementations that allow us to reduce the number of servers that we have, because there is an expense to maintaining a large server infrastructure.
And you could see there was a pretty significant difference between the premise versus the hosted costing in their proposals.
There is, and this ERP implementations in a hosted environment is something that's relatively new to the market, and so at this point, I think it would be good for us to implement the system, make sure that we have all of our business process and financial reporting needs handled, and then when we can see a demonstration that the hosted solution is meeting the needs of other vendors, then other clients, then we would be ready to do so as well. So the bottom line is Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 was determined to have the best user interface, technical foundation, flexibility, and future growth potential of the three products, all at a reasonable cost. Tyler Technologies is the vendor that submitted the proposal. Tyler was founded in 1966. They have over 30 years of successful public sector implementation experience, more than 10,000 public sector clients, and they were the co-developer of Dynamics AX 2012 public sector functionality with Microsoft, and so they know the product well. The benefits to changing our ERP system and specifically going with Dynamics will allow us to streamline operations by automating business process workflows, provide employee self-service, reduce our PDC IT staff required to support 11 databases and third-party software. Our databases are currently supported by one LTE, and that position is scheduled to sunset. Position our ERP to migrate to the cloud, which will reduce the infrastructure requirements, enhance our disaster recovery abilities, and provide the ability to enter time and approve transactions remotely. It's also more cost-effective than Lawson over the long haul. So we estimate that it would cost us about $500,000 more over the same period to stay with Lawson. So that's our presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, good presentation. Looks like good process. Changing software, however, is always a scary enterprise. I see everybody chuckling because everybody's been through it once or twice, and of course we get an opportunity to read about the disasters all of the time. This one's mitigated a bit by not being completely custom, obviously, and you've done your homework in terms of both the software itself and the firm that's going to be providing it. I mean, I understand why we need to move off of Lawson. It's 14 years old. It's not going to be maintained. It was designed for a PDC that had 230 employees in a housing department, and we now have 95. So it's probably way too much horsepower for what we need, and that's not very efficient. And it's expensive to maintain. I guess my biggest question is only the amount of references that were checked, and I wonder if there were even people who had gone from Lawson to this particular program, if there are folks with that kind of experience. Because for me, what I have found in the past is when there turned out to be a problem, we were later able to find out that there were a whole bunch of people that had a problem. So that's the reason for the question.
So we did check 4 references. The 4 references that we checked were a combination of municipalities. City of Redmond is one of the users. Oregon Lottery Oregon Lottery is using a different version. So we did not check references with them because we wanted the reference check to be specifically the version that we're looking at. They have a much more robust retail need because of their retail kiosks, and we had 1 water authority and then a couple of special governments, so 4 in total that we checked. And folks were pretty honest with us. Everybody says the same thing. Implementations are difficult. They found Tyler to be very good to work with, and they were all coming from all 4 different systems, but none of them were Lawson. So we did not check any references, and we're not aware of any implementations that was a migration from Lawson to Dynamics. Mostly what we heard was know your business processes, manage your scope, and make sure that you know what you want before you get started with the implementation. We asked all of them if there were any surprises with the product itself, and none of them said that there were any surprises. Most of their surprises were around their own internal processes and not understanding them well enough to be ready to inform what that would look like in a new system. So hopefully we'll learn from their mistakes and not have that same problem.
And the last nasty lesson that I learned was the contract itself, as you were negotiating the contract, just make sure, some of the problems that I have seen is the complaints are that there's not enough support at the end of the day for the implementation, and it gets delayed and it gets delayed, and then you finally implement it because you have to, because you're kind of out of time, and there are real problems. And unfortunately, the contracts that I was working with didn't have enough teeth in it in terms of both the dates that the things had to be done, the kind of support that was able to give, and then at the end of the day, the kind of penalties or at least holdbacks that are taken into consideration while the work is going. So that's kind of advice.
So I'd like to point out that General Counsel has guided us toward outside counsel that does this specifically. So we'll have good counsel that that deals typically with these sort of technology agreements, and so hopefully that will help steer us in that right direction. The one thing I failed to mention, Chair Andrews, too, is that what we're asking for is the authorization for the executive director to negotiate the contract, but we're not asking yet for the budget authority. So we will be coming back to you with a final number to ask for the budget authority, and at that time we'll provide an update on the contract negotiations.
Great, perfect. That's all I had. Commissioner Dixon?
Well, yeah, the implementation is obviously the most difficult part, and part of my questioning, again, was just, I know you're going to be running Lawson at the same time as this program, so it's going to be a lot of added work, and I mostly wanted to make sure that you had the staff that you needed to be able to handle that kind of a switchover, and then still function and get all your reports and be here and have everything compliant.
We've put a fair amount of thought into that, and the executive director has authorized some backfill for the shop, and so we hopefully have that covered.
Good. And then also, in terms of the support, we touched upon that number, but how much do you think that one is in comparison to the Lawson per year, just to get an idea of what we're...
Oh, that's right. Okay. This one was too busy, so I decided to just keep it as a final slide in case you should ask. So the maintenance fees in year one for Dynamics is $93,605, and then it escalates by 5% each year.
Okay.
Compared to Lawson, and you would have to take into consideration that we have this one additional person supporting it. In year one, it's $261,000, and then escalates by 5% for the software itself, but 2% maybe if you were to keep that individual on staff.
Okay, so it's a significant.
So it's a significant, over the 5-year period, just for maintenance and support, it's 894,000 savings on the annual cost. Now, of course, the implementation cost is higher, the upfront cost. So we're spending about 388,000 more to implement a new system than we would to do all of the upgrades and implementation of Lawson, for a net savings, as I said, of about 505,000 over the 5-year period.
And then also, for me, it's been really important that I have been consulting with CPAs and accountants and other such people looking at the program to making sure that any of their questions or reports or any issues that they may have with this new system, that they address those as you're going into that implementation period as well.
So we've already contacted Moss Adams, our external auditor, as you know, to have them come in and weigh in on the front end.
Good.
So that we make sure that we take any of their concerns into consideration, and then also to give us guidance on when throughout the process it would be good for them to come and touch base. Ideally, what we would have them do, they do an IT audit every year, and so ideally what we would have them do is audit the IT system separate from the financial audit, so that if there's anything that has to be corrected in the system, then we can do that without holding up the timing of the financial audit. So we plan to do that, and we're working with them right now to that end.
All right, well, it sounds like we're in good hands. You guys have thought of everything, so that's good.
Commissioner Kelly?
So, this is the kind of migration that you don't do very often in an organization. How many of you have been through something like this,
Well,
previous jobs or whatever?
We being the PDC staff that will be working on this, have all worked on the prior Lawson upgrades and implementations. So the initial, in 1999-2000, most of my staff were not here for, but then the 2 subsequent major upgrades to the system they were here for. And keeping in mind, you're right, but keeping in mind that's why the vendor is so important. That's why we checked the vendor's references to make sure that we had a vendor that has public sector experience, lots of instances of implementations, and a good success rate. And Tyler Technologies knows the system very well. We know our system and our business processes very well, and so I think the combination should help us through that.
So Tyler has a location here in town?
They do not have a location here in town. They're a Texas-based company, and when we, I don't think Dan touched on this, but when we did the RFQ process, we did not have any local vendors. And so Tyler, you'll see in this cost that we have up here, we have a line for travel and expense. We had the vendors propose to include in their proposal what it would cost for their travel and the cost of accommodations when they come here to work with us. And so we had that from all 3 vendors as well. It's included in the cost that we're requesting authorization for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wilhoit?
No, I think most of my key questions have already been addressed, and as usual, Faye and Dan and her team have done a thorough job of analyzing what we're facing, and I think one of the critical considerations is we're on a platform now that doesn't suit the organization, and we need to make this or take this step now, or we're going to end up taking it later, and it never gets less expensive. So I'm happy to see the thoroughness put into the consideration of this change, and I don't have any concerns about this proposed change other than what everyone else is already expressing. Software transitions are challenging, and we already know that. We don't see any need for consulting help with regard to the transition itself. We're going to get that from the vendor.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And the one question I have, and I think we have this with regard to every project that we consider, but from a scoring perspective, how do we contemplate equity in that scoring grid that we saw a little earlier? And I know we talked about not having a vendor locally, but I think that's something we want to make clear to the public every time we run through something that's part of our consideration.
Address that? I'd be happy to address that, and I think that is an excellent question. Overall, I feel our equity policies are most effective when we're dealing with our local businesses that really have a vested interest in the health and the well-being of the community. We knew from the RFQ process in general that all of the vendors were not local. Our equity policies only concern Oregon businesses that are certified here. I think that Tyler, as like a branch, I think we're mostly be dealing with outside of Seattle, that still wouldn't count for our equity credits. We also knew the scope of the project was not such something that could be broken up or parsed out and kind of divided to allow for different chunks to allow for other segments of the work. So taking all that into consideration, the localness, the distance of the firms and the scope, we just didn't see how that applied in this particular transaction. But it's, of course, always a lens whenever we're doing any contracting activities, that it's always in the forefront.
Is it built into our scoring model, though, I guess is a question I have, as far as, is there a place to identify yourself as a small business, a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business in the response to the RFP?
Usually they are, except in this case here, because none of them would qualify, because you have to be incorporated in the state to get credits. So otherwise, yes, it's absolutely built into all of our RFPs.
Okay, and not to belabor the point, I don't know that it matters. I mean, of course, we want to focus locally, but I don't know if it matters to the commissioners or you, Patrick, but as far as scoring, I would think that would just be a standard component. If none of them met that, none of them met that. But I don't know that we would take it out. So I guess I want to make sure we're not taking it out. It's still a consideration all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I guess I just want to make sure you said we don't have budget authorization for it, but as I read this resolution, it doesn't look to me like there's any need for it to come back to the commission. Am I wrong?
No, it won't. And it actually contemplates, yeah, it has a cushion in there and it contemplates if we have multiple agreements, so that's why it's worded that way. But you're going to see in the revised budget a whole different line item. So you basically have another opportunity to talk about it if you want.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood
But
how
the
that would
number
work.
could be higher than the 1.3?
It can't be higher without us coming back to you.
Can't be higher than the amount that's in the resolution that you're approving today.
And
I see.
we'll get a full update
Okay.
when we finally authorize what it is within the budget. Is
Okay.
the
All
bottom
right,
line.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if it somehow it's out of budget, we would have a conversation. I do not hope to have that conversation.
Yeah, you don't want to have it either.
No.
Can I just want to weigh in a little bit. One, I really do appreciate the questions, and these are the kind of questions we have to ask Fake and attest to the conversations that she and I had even after we had gone through this process and selected a vendor for this. It is a big undertaking, and you don't want to get it wrong. Commissioner Kelly, in response to your question, a number of us who are currently in management went through the last major upgrade to Lawson that included a variety of it wasn't just an installation of a whole additional module to the kind of a cost accounting module to our ERP system, but it was a massive business process conversation. So we've been through this. Prior to being executive director, I actually was the project sponsor for that, and so I brought that responsibility with me when I became executive director. That project was much more substantial certainly from a staff involvement perspective than what we're undertaking here. And we learned a lot of lessons from that. We learned a lot of lessons in overcomplicating things and how you can make a process go wrong or take longer than it needs to. We also have worked on a number of occasions during this time period with consultants, and I fully recognize that there's a value to consultants on certain projects, but we've had a mixed experience ourselves with bringing in kind of consultants in between the vendor and PDC. From my perspective, this is of a size that matches the expertise that we have in-house plus the expertise of the vendor. If we were talking about an installation of something that was much bigger in dollar amount or scope, then I think we should be having a conversation about an outside consultant. But I think this is a appropriately sized deal for our level of, for the level of expertise that we have in this organization. And then just to take it back up one level, Faye had a slide up there that I just want to remind everybody on the board about, that we did this big look at IT over a year ago, and we came back to you with our findings on that, and this was one of the major questions that we identified in that big look. We knew we had some legacy systems that did not match where the organization was heading, and so from that moment, we said, all right, this has to be addressed, and then we've methodically both reviewed, prior to getting to this point, Faye was in charge of evaluating Lawson and figuring out where, what this meant for the new organization, and so that was decision point 1, yes or no on Lawson, and then decision point 2 was what's in front of you now. That first process was fairly involved as well, and it was pretty depressing for us. It was pretty unfortunate, because we basically realized that we had a vendor that could no longer support us as an organization and no longer had an interest in supporting us because we were way too small. But once we got to that determination, then we moved forward on this, and I think we're pretty optimistic that we now have an appropriate system for the organization that we are now, and that we're going to be. But this has been a very thoughtful process with people. I think I include myself, who have now a fair amount of experience in not only IT installations, but just thinking strategically about the appropriate IT infrastructure for this type of organization. And I want to applaud both Faye and Dan and on their work on this. And we should come back and give you a report regardless of whether we're over budget or, well, when we're way under budget, we'll still come back and talk to you about this project. But just so you can hear from the project team, Faye has been very thoughtful in assembling a project team and thinking about staff, backfill, and all the other needs. And so it'll be nice to come back and report to you on how this is going, because it is, it's been a very thoughtful process to date. And I'd like to come back and share the good news with you as we work through this. So.
Great. Any further questions? Okay, I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7040, authorizing one or more agreements with Tyler Technologies, Inc. for a sum not to exceed $1,320,000 to license, implement, support, and provide up to 5 years of maintenance of Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012.
So moved.
I'll let you decide.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, and Dan and Faye, I want to echo Patrick's thank you for all your hard work on this, and
Thank
we
you very
look
much.
forward to getting a fabulous report about how well it's going.
Thank you.
And under budget.
Under budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Thanks, guys.
That is all we have on the agenda today, so we're adjourned. Thank you very much.